I know there's something about her that I would want to live in. And I just can't.
And finally, music legend Stevie Nicks has announced she's working on her first new album in 14 years. The 76-year-old singer says it'll be autobiographical and will feature memories of Prince and other fantastic men she's known. The Fleetwood Mac star has already completed 7 songs, but it's not yet clear when she plans to release the full album. And you can keep up to date with all the latest breaking news on Sports Online, but it's time now for a look at the weather forecast.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
This afternoon will be cloudy and wet with outbreaks of rain across the country. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees on the east to northeast winds. Rain will become lighter and patchier this evening with temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. And tonight will be mostly cloudy with patchy drizzle along with some areas of mist and fog. Temperatures of between 8 and 10 degrees.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media One.
New data from Manila.com shows that 65% of couples argue about money.
Well, that begs the question, how can couples navigate the tricky waters of budgets, bills and big financial goals without sympathy?
Here to tell us more is the money coach known online as Mrs. Smart Money, Kel Gallivan. Good morning, Kel.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. It's great to be here. So let's talk about this. I think financial compatibility is very important in a relationship. I think like if you're frugal, you should find someone frugal. If you're lavish, you should find someone lavish. But what are the kind of conversations you should have at the beginning of a relationship to make sure you're kind of on the same page?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because if you are on the same playing field, at least, even if you're not in the same position, it makes life a lot easier. But if most of us don't come to the table going, here's exactly where I am with money, and I'm this and this, are you suitable? It's not generally the first conversation that we have, but I do think it's an important conversation to bring in. You don't have to go like diving in 2 feet, because we all start at different levels and we all have different levels of confidence and different incomes and different backgrounds. So I would say if you're dating or you're thinking of moving in, start with a simple thing of, well, look, maybe let's, if we had a weekend away, what would that look like? Who would pay for what? Will we go 50-50? And just start planning something together where you have to pool finances in some shape or form, or there's an overlapping of finances. And that can open the conversation then to seeing where people are, and you can see if they're frugal or they're lavish. And all that does really is start a conversation, because you're going out with them for loads more reasons than their financial savviness or not, as the case may be. But at least this starts that conversation. So I think it's important early just to have the little kind of chats of, you know, what was it like growing up with money for you? Or, you know, what was the biggest thing you ever learned? Did you ever get frightened with it? And make it just an easy conversation from day one.
It's kind of a hard one to navigate, isn't it? At the start, especially, you don't want to be talking about money or seem to be cheap. But you can kind of get it almost by feel, don't you? Whether someone's the kind of person that feels an orange in their pocket, or whether they're willing to pay for the dinner or not.
Yeah, and if something for you yourself, if you really value that trust in that relationship, or you really, you don't want, if you find somebody who is peeling the orange in their pocket, it might be worth pointing it out in a humorous way, kind of go, like, what's that about? What brought that there? Because you also don't know their background. Maybe they had that tougher upbringing. Maybe, you know, that's something that they're maybe overwhelmed with money or fearful of money. And I wouldn't necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater because of that, but I would definitely have that conversation to figure out why. And you might be surprised at the answers you might get from them.
Are there any instances where you would throw the baby out with the bathwater? Are there any like financial red flags? You know, on a first date, if they're kind of like a bit on ice, they kind of like sit back and look at you, like, are there any red flags that we should be paying heed to?
Yeah, I think definitely secrecy is a tough one. Secrecy, because that could be secrecy in the sense that they're hiding something bigger, or maybe they're not willing to trust the relationship enough to open up fully with money. Again, that's a conversation piece. But I would definitely, if the secrecy keeps running and running, even though you've tried to have the conversations, even though you've tried to say, look, we're in this together, let's work it out. And here's where I am. Yeah, I have a bit of credit card debt. You know, if you're doing all of that work and you're not getting the trust and the openness in return, I'd be slow to throw everything out, because again, if you don't know, but if you've had the conversation and nothing has changed, I would be wary, particularly if you're looking at being married or having children. Like there's a long game at play here. If the trust isn't there, then that can be a much tougher road than what it needs to be.
So if you're a bit later on in the relationship, say you've been renting a while, you're looking at moving in, and that mortgage application can be when everything gets laid bare, everything is sent off to the broker or the bank or whatever, and you suddenly see, hold on, you have an account you never told me about or whatever. What are the kind of conversations you need to have in advance of doing something like that, moving in together, pooling your finances?
Yes, that's huge. And I'm a big fan of what I call a money date. And a money date is basically where you sit down and keep it easy, keep it light, and instead of a kind of, oh, I think you maybe spend a bit more, or what do you do with that kind of debt, approach it in a collaborative way. Instead of a me versus you, you're wasting money, make it what would we like to achieve in 5 years' time? Would we like to have the mortgage? Would we like to have that debt cleared? And then it's a we versus the problem. And that's it's a small shift in language, but there's a massive shift in how you view the thing. Then it's not combative, it's collaborative.
Shouldn't you be like 100% honest? Because you ever hear people have a runaway fund or have something a little aside from themselves.
Your fiance's watching now.
Well, I'm sure she has one more than me now, in fairness, like, but you know, people sometimes do have that bit of money inside, just in case things go wrong, they might want to just keep to themselves.
Yeah, look, it really depends on where you are in your relationship. I firmly believe that pooling at least part of your relationship is important for the transparency, for the communication, for the paying the mortgage, the bills, so you see everything together. But you're still individual people. So it is nice to, even if both paychecks go into the same account, and that's very, very common, a small account on the side, it's just yours. That's, you know, for you to have no questions asked. Like, you've earned that money and go enjoy it. But also that maybe if a relationship starts a bit later on in life where there are assets, there are different things built up, well, I would definitely go.
Kathy, when do we want to start walking over?
Did you have that shared piece as well? So the transparency is important, and it's okay sometimes for one partner to say, well, this is mine, I'm not fully ready for that to be ours just yet, but the conversation is where the magic happens to make that okay.
So say this hypothetical couple, they've moved in together, they've gotten the mortgage, the next step is the wedding. What do you do if one person wants a 25-person sit-down dinner and the other person wants a 300-person party? How do they align there?
This is such a common one I get, absolutely. So look, the wedding day is important, but it's a beautiful day and you're joining two people and it's forever. But at the same time, there's a lot of expense that goes along with weddings. So what I would do for that is, again, communication, both parts of the couple sit down and go, for the wedding day, what are your couple's really big things? The ones that you've absolutely been thinking about for years.
Non-negotiables.
The non-negotiables, and go for them. That's where you put your money. And then there'll be certain things in the wedding day where you mightn't, look, I don't mind if I have this piece or this piece, but here are my non-negotiables. Absolutely, you push to have that. At the same time, if the other person's thinking, oh, well, we'd like to get the mortgage under control, or we're looking at maybe preparing for children, and that's where you kind of we try and keep it within a budget. So that means that both parties get what they want. You get the non-negotiables, but the other partner gets the peace of mind of knowing that, look, okay, yes, these are the expenses, but it's not going to stop our future plans.
Yeah, a lot of conversations that need to happen, I suppose, is what we're getting back to. And if you have any cash conundrums or you're having some budget blunders, you want to start the conversation, Kel is going to be sticking around. She's back at 10:45 to sort you out. You can send in your questions on WhatsApp 0896 111 111.
Kel Callaghan from Money Mindset, thank you so much for that. Now, after the break, we're joined by some of Ireland's finest six-time Paralympic champion Jason Smith, along with Paris Paralympians Sarah Slattery and Tiernan O'Donnell.
Let's see just a moment.
Fairy Platinum Dishwasher Capsules, a powerful all-in-one capsule that cuts through the toughest cleaning challenges. Fairy Platinum Dishwasher Capsules, tough on the toughest messes.
It's very back in another artist's career, trying to get an opportunity.
It's insane. I'm just meant to be just promote us.
Brand new, The Secret Headliner. Coming soon to Virgin Media Play and Virgin Media One.
To the comfortable home, the wonderful every day. I am disabled and I like to do things fast, and now fast. just got better. Fast just got better. New Persil Water Wash. Blast away invisible dirt and sweat. Our first ever detergent designed for shorter cycle. Better on older, better on seconds. New Persil Wonder Wash. Fast just got better.
Skip the hospital waiting list. Healthcare Abroad helps you access world-class treatment through the EU Cross-Border Directive.
The process is quick, simple, and stress-free.
Irish patients can access life-changing medical treatment in as little as 20 days in hospitals like the state-of-the-art Vida Storia Hospital in Valencia.
Take control of your health and reclaim your life.
The HSE
What?
will reimburse the cost of your medical treatment. Take the first step today. Contact Healthcare Abroad now.
Lock in your price in the Virgin Media Playhouse. Unlike some other providers, when you switch to us, we guarantee not to hike our prices during your offer period. So, super-fast, reliable broadband can be yours from just €35 a month, guaranteed for the next 12 months. Lock in your price today at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
Back in the day, if you wanted to picture yourself, this was the only option. Be still. Forget this. Way easier. Same with shoes. You used to have to bend down and struggle. But there's an easier way with hands-free Skechers slip-ins. I just step in and go. No bending down. I never have to touch my shoes. Step out of the dark ages and step into Skechers slip-ins.
Yeah, broken down in the middle more. No, almost the whole party. Yeah, look, like there's nothing I can actually do about it, so. Genius here, forgot to put petrol in the car.
Classic Dad.
You're welcome.
Tow truck guy said 4 hours.
And for lucky.
I know they're gonna hate us. There's nothing we can do. Oh, look, a tractor.
Good food, good mood. From Aldi. Going to witness protection, not keep you safe.
In progress now. This being a security breach. Detective practice. Should know the location of the house.
No reconciliation is practice. Your lives on purpose, whoever is on the hunt.
Did you know odors get trapped in your home's fabrics and are released back over time? Febreze Fabric Refresher eliminates odors for an all-over freshness you'll love.
Good morning, welcome back. Irish Paralympics has gone from strength to strength, but we still have a long way to go.
Now, six-time Paralympic champion Jason Smith and Paralympians Tiernan O'Donnell and Sarah Slattery join us on the case this morning to chat about that. Good morning, guys. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Gemma, we'll start with yourself. You've got a prosthetic leg, but the issues with your leg started when you were 5. Can you tell us kind of how you acquired this?
Yeah, so I was at a sports day, like any young child in primary school, and I came home with a limp, and what we thought was just a sore leg or a bad tackle from a classmate quickly developed into years and years in hospital. I was diagnosed with a rare malformation when I was 5 and was treated for that for 14 or 15 years, but it just kept progressing, kept getting worse. So we went and got a second opinion in Boston, and I was re-diagnosed then with a rare tumor, being the 16th person in the world diagnosed with it. 16th, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, extremely unlucky, or maybe lucky, because it turned out to be lucky for me eventually. And so I kind of tried to treat the tumor for a year or two, and eventually, with all the pain and all of it that it was causing, I chose to amputate. And it opened this whole new world to me in parasport, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me now.
Basketball was your original sport, wasn't it?
Yeah, I played basketball since I was 14. So I played for 10 years internationally, and then I got to 24 and was feeling like I was getting old, and if I wanted to chase this Paralympic dream, if I wanted to chase this Paralympic dream, I thought I needed to change sport, and I got a DM from Katie O'Brien, who's a rower, saying she thinks I'd be good at rowing. Went and saw her break a world record, and that kind of just put me on this trajectory to pursue a career in rowing, and brought me to the Paralympics in Paris.
Yeah, I think it's not just one but 2 sports kind of internationally. It's quite an achievement at your young age.
Old at 24.
Sarah, I'll hop over to you. So your dad, Tom, Slattery has a huge influence in the world of show jumping, but it was actually your mother that introduced you to paradressing, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, my dad, show jumper, that was his job, that's what we grew up with. And yeah, it was my mum, she came from Denmark, she had a background in dressage. And as kids, we loved show jumping, we hated dressage, that was no fun at all for us. But actually, yeah, like that, as I got older and yeah, got into the world of para dressage, it was her kind of backing me the whole way, helping me with horses, helping with the training. So yeah, she's had a huge influence on that. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, you have difficulty in one of your arms.
Yeah, so at 8 years old, I actually had cancer in my arm, and they had to remove the whole muscle from my arm and the tendons and ligaments. And there was a chance that I could lose the arm, but the plastic surgeon actually replaced the tendons and ligaments in my arm with tendons and ligaments from my legs. So I got to keep the arm, luckily enough, but I don't have a lot of strength in it. I don't have a lot of range of movement. And like that, coming from a horsey background, there was never a question that I wouldn't get back into the horses. So yeah. Even with the disability, it was, yeah, back out into the horses. But instead of just riding with a normal pair of reins, we got a pair of looped reins, so I could actually hold on to the reins. And I kind of continued with that as a child and through my early years, riding like that, and never actually thinking about para dressage or disability sport really. So it wasn't until I was a bit older that I figured out about the world of para and para dressage and kind of got more into it then.
Okay, those looped reins were a great help when it came to dressage.
Absolutely, absolutely incredible. We got them from a company in the UK that makes them specially for disabled riders or riders that have arthritis or just have problems holding on to the reins. And yeah, it opened up a whole new world for me. I found out about Para-Equestrian Ireland, I found out about, Paralympics Ireland, and that I actually fitted into this space. And this was something that I could actually pursue because I was never very good at the show jumping or any of the rest of it that the rest of the family is. But yeah, through the help of my mom and everything else, I could actually succeed at the para dressage and made it to the Paralympics, which was just incredible.
Yeah,
so it was
amazing.
Yeah.
And sorry.
No, go on.
Jason, a man who needs barely any introduction, you've had a very long, prosperous, successful career. Can you tell us a little bit about when you first got into athletics, how accessible it was?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up with, was diagnosed with a visual impairment at the age of 8, and I would have grown up probably just like you were saying, any other kid loving sport. Was always somebody who was naturally fast. So even from back in primary 1 of sports day, I was the one crossing the finish line first. I was always fast, loved football, loved rugby. So speed's always a good asset to have in any sport, isn't it? But it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 that I actually got involved in athletics. And it was a school teacher who encouraged me to go. I wasn't really interested, but cut a long story short, told her she came back the information I would go, and along I went. But for me, like, I never looked at myself as being any different than anybody else in terms of opportunities and getting involved in sport. And actually for quite a few years in athletics, my coach didn't even know that I had a visual impairment. And again, obviously depending on people's impairment or disability, some you can see, and some of the challenge myself is somewhat invisible and you can't see it. And for me, it was always, in everything I did, it was nearly not tell anybody and just try to be like everybody else and fit in and do my sport to whatever level I could. And that's really where athletics started for me.
Okay, London 2012. That was a game changer for Paralympics.
It really was. So my first games was Beijing 2008. And obviously para sport, as we all know, has changed massively. And London 2012 really was, I know you guys will look at Paris, and Paris was an incredible games. And I think from Paris, often is the hype and the media and the corporate side, all the entourage that really comes around the games has really ratcheted up. But London as a games was really the first time that, and even looking back, it became the first moment that was about people's abilities, rather than their disabilities. In terms of audience and spectators, full stadiums, it was that kind of first moment that I felt para sport really kind of stepped out into the limelight, and from there, yes, we've had slight ups and downs between Rio, Tokyo, but Paris then I think really taking things to another level, which I know you two would definitely agree.
Absolutely experience, but there is still a little bit of a way to go to, and I know you've been an advocate for amputees to have better access to prosthetics here in Ireland. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of this in the Paralympic Games?
Yeah, so leading into the Paralympic Games, I have a microprocessing knee, so it's a bionic leg. I have to charge it every night before I go to bed.
And that's not available readily in Ireland, is it?
No, unless you have €60,000 of